What happens when a man quietly watching from the back of a long line realizes the cashier just humiliated a struggling mother in front of her child. And that man owns the entire chain. Harlen Oakes stood near the end of a line that nearly wrapped around the self-checkout area. The store was busier than usual for a Tuesday afternoon, but he didn't mind waiting. His hoodie was slightly oversized, and the hat pulled low over his brow helped make sure nobody looked twice. That was the point. Nobody at this store had ever met him face to face. It had been nearly 8 years since he bought the chain from the original owners and turned it into a 16-store operation. This one, on Florence Avenue, was one of the older locations, and the complaints trickling in lately had bothered him more than he'd like to admit. Management reports had painted a clean picture, but the tone of some customer emails didn't sit right with him, so here he was. No security, no cameras, no boardroom, just a man in line with a plastic basket watching. Ahead of him, a woman with 2 kids, one in a stroller, the other about 5 years old, fumbled with her wallet at register 4. Her cart was filled with basics: cereal, diapers, some canned soup, milk, nothing fancy. The little boy clutched a small box of crayons. The woman's hands trembled as she tried to slide her card. Declined, she tried again. Same result. "Ma'am, if you don't have the money, you need to step aside," the cashier snapped, her voice sharp and loud enough for everyone to hear. "Please, just 1 second." "I think I have some cash," the woman said, digging through her purse, clearly flustered. The cashier rolled her eyes. "You've been standing there forever. There's a line, you know. You could have figured this out before holding up everyone." The little boy looked up, his lip quivering. "Mommy." "Are we in trouble?" Harlen felt his jaw tighten. The woman didn't say anything, just pulled out a few crumpled bills and some coins, trying to count under pressure. Behind the register, the cashier, mid-20s, dark ponytail, full face of makeup, crossed her arms. "I don't have time for this." "You either pay or take your stuff and go." The mother looked like she was about to cry. I'm sorry, I'm trying. I don't want your sob story," the cashier snapped. "You're holding up my line." Harlen stepped forward. "That's enough." The cashier turned to him, annoyed. "Excuse me, you're not going to talk to her like that." The woman looked at Harlen, unsure whether to be grateful or more embarrassed. He nodded at her gently, then stepped closer to the register. "I'll cover her bill," he said. "Run it with mine," the cashier scoffed. "That's not how it works." "She already scanned it." "Then void it and rescan it. It's not that complicated," the woman whispered. "You don't have to do this, I know, but I want to." The cashier huffed and finally began rescanning the items. The young boy looked up at Harlen with wide eyes. "Thank you, sir." Harlen smiled softly. "Crayons are important business." Once everything was bagged, the woman gave him a quiet, tearful thank you and walked out. The cashier muttered, "People like that shouldn't even come in if they can't pay." Harlen stared at her. "What's your name?" she blinked. "Why?" "Because I'm going to remember it." He paid for both orders. The cashier, still annoyed, didn't say thank you. As Harlen walked out, he noticed a young man by the cart return helping an elderly customer lift a bag into her trunk. He moved fast, smiling, even though sweat dotted his brow. Harlen took note of the name tag, Devon. Back inside, the store was chaotic, shelves half-stocked, 2 registers open during rush hour. Harlen ducked behind an end cap and took out his phone not to text but to open the employee portal. He looked up the schedule for today. Only 4 employees were listed for the entire afternoon shift. That explained a lot. He waited until the crowd thinned, then walked to the back of the store where a line of carts blocked the employees' only door. He pushed through and found a small break room, empty except for a woman sitting at a table rubbing her temples. She looked up, surprised. "Can I help you?" "Yeah, I'm supposed to start today. New hire, name's Greg." She gave him a once-over. "You're the new trainee," he nodded. "Supposed to start in stocking, I think," she sighed. "Figures, they always send people when it's already a mess. I'm Wendy, assistant manager." "Nice to meet you." She stood up, pulled a clipboard from the wall. "Let me find your schedule. We're down 3 people today. 2 called out, 1 quit last week. Just a heads up, it's gonna be a rough one." "I can handle rough," Harlen said. What he didn't say was that this wasn't the first time he'd gone undercover in one of his stores, but it was the first time he felt this kind of anger in his chest. Not just at the cashier, but at himself, because somehow this slipped past him. And that woman and her kids paid the price for it. He wouldn't let it happen again. The stockroom was hotter than the front of the store, the air thick with dust and the faint smell of cardboard. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as Harlen followed Wendy through narrow aisles of stacked pallets, broken-down boxes, and half-labeled bins. She moved quickly, pointing out the essentials without much ceremony. You'll be pulling from these pallets and restocking aisles 5 through 8. Make sure you rotate the dates, new stuff in the back, old up front. That's what the stickers are for. Don't assume it's been done right. She didn't wait for a response. A clipboard was shoved into his hands, along with a box cutter and a pair of gloves with holes in the palms. You'll be working with Jonah. He's your lead today. If he tells you to do something, do it. We don't have time for hand-holding. Harlen nodded once and waited until she turned the corner before scanning the space again. Dust coated the tops of the shelves. Several cases of expired soup sat untouched beneath a broken fan. One of the cooler doors had a piece of duct tape holding it shut. A handwritten sign read, "Don't open buzzes nonstop." He found Jonah near the back corner, bent over a dolly with an open box of canned beans. The guy looked to be in his early 30s, sleeves rolled up, earbuds in, and moving faster than anyone had a right to in a room with no air circulation. "You Greg?" Jonah asked without looking up. "That's me." Jonah nodded toward a stack of flattened boxes. "Grab that cart and follow me. Don't put anything on the shelves unless you check the dates first." "I'm not getting written up because someone didn't bother to look." They worked in silence for several minutes, moving through aisles with the sort of rhythm that comes from doing the same thing every day at the same pace with no help. Harlen noticed the labels on several items were in the wrong spots. Some shelves had price tags for products that weren't even there. Jonah stopped at the cereal section and started pulling outdated boxes from the back. "You from another store?" he asked. "No, first time." "You'll hate it by Friday." "Why's that?" Jonah pulled off a faded box of bran flakes and tossed it into a nearby bin. "Because they'll run you ragged, cut your hours, then act like you're the reason sales are down. That's how it goes here." "You don't like management," Jonah shrugged. "They don't like us, so I don't see the point in pretending. You'll see soon enough." Harlen didn't respond. He scanned the shelf, found a misplaced tag, and quietly adjusted it. They moved on to the next aisle, where a woman in a green apron struggled to lift a case of bottled water onto the top shelf. She was older, maybe in her late 50s, with tightly coiled gray hair and a limp that made her movements slow but deliberate. Jonah stepped in and helped hoist the case up without a word. She gave a grateful nod. "This is Greg," Jonah said. "New guy." She gave Harlen a brief look and said, "Hope you've got patience." "You'll need it. Thanks for the heads up." She adjusted the hem of her apron and leaned against the shelf for a moment. "They cut our shift again. We're short 3 people today. I asked if we could stagger breaks so we're not all wiped, but the answer I got was make it work, like we're magicians or something." "Who told you that?" Store manager. "Russ. He's not around much though, likes to come in late, leave early. If you see him, it means someone from corporate's visiting." Jonah glanced at his watch. "He'll pop in around 5:30, pretend he's been here all day." Harlen noted the time. It was barely past 3, they returned to stocking. At one point, a customer asked where the peanut butter was. Jonah pointed toward aisle 3, then sighed as the man walked away. "Half the time, the labels are wrong anyway. They moved things around last month to improve flow. Customers hate it, but nobody listens." "Did you give the feedback?" "Yeah, got told to submit it through the portal." "Which nobody checks." Harlen pushed a cart toward the dairy section and noticed a man in a white shirt talking to a group of employees near the back corner by the walk-in fridge. The man wore a lanyard and carried a tablet. He was giving instructions, but the workers looked exhausted. One of them, a tall kid with acne and a name tag that read Lewis, kept glancing at the clock. Harlen approached casually, pretending to be organizing yogurt cups. "You get your break yet?" he asked Lewis under his breath. Lewis shook his head. "Supposed to be 10 minutes ago." "But he wants this cooler done first." Harlen kept his eyes on the shelf. "You've been here since when?" 7 this morning. That made it an 8-hour shift with no break. Harlen glanced at the man with the tablet. He wasn't paying attention to anything but his screen. A woman in a ponytail stepped out of the fridge and bumped into Lewis. "You still not on break?" she asked. "Guess not." She rolled her eyes. "It's illegal, but hey, he's got a clipboard, so I guess that makes it fine." The man with the tablet looked up. "You two done chatting?" They both fell silent. Harlan's phone buzzed in his pocket. He ignored it. By 4:30, Harlen had seen enough. An overflowing trash can sat in the corner of the break room, and the vending machine had an out-of-order sign taped over the front. He passed two employees eating granola bars while standing because there were no chairs left. The only working microwave had a cracked door and the fridge was leaking. Jonah came in, shaking sweat from his forehead. "Did you meet Darlene yet?" he asked. "No, who's that?" Front-end supervisor. "Runs the registers. If you thought Wendy was rough, wait till you see her. She's got a stopwatch for the cashiers. If you take longer than 2 minutes per customer, she docks your break. Seriously, dead serious. Last week, she told a girl to skip water because her pace was slipping." They sat in silence for a minute. "You ever think about quitting?" Harlen asked. "Every day, but I've got a kid, and this place, well, it's not much, but it's steady." "If you don't get on the wrong side of someone," Harlen stood. "What counts as the wrong side? Speaking up. Asking why, telling a customer the truth, happens once, you get a warning. Twice, you lose hours. Third time, they tell you it's not working out. Then you're gone." Harlen walked out of the break room and back toward the front of the store. The line at register 4 was long again. Darlene stood behind the counter, arms crossed, watching the cashier ring people up. She had a small notepad in hand and a timer running on her phone. Every 30 seconds, she made a mark. The cashier, same one from earlier, kept glancing at her nervously. A man in a wheelchair struggled to reach a bottle of juice on the far end of the conveyor. The cashier didn't move to help. "Sir, you need to push it closer," she said flatly. "I'm trying." Darlene didn't step in. She just kept the timer running. The woman behind him eventually reached forward and helped. The cashier didn't say thank you. Harlen watched all of it. He turned to leave, but Devin, the young man who had helped the elderly woman earlier, was now bagging groceries at register 2. He moved quickly, quietly, and smiled at each person. When a toddler dropped a bag of rice, Devin picked it up without hesitation and made a silly sound to make the child laugh. No one told him to do it. No one paid attention, but Harlen did. He stepped outside into the thick evening air. The sun had dipped low, casting long shadows across the parking lot. He leaned against a cart return and pulled out his phone. He made one call, not to corporate, not to HR, to his operations advisor. "Clear your calendar for tomorrow morning," Harlen said. "I want the regional manager, store manager, and HR lead here at 8 sharp. No excuses." "You okay?" the advisor asked. "No, but I will be." Harlen's voice was steady. "It's time to clean house." By 7:40 the next morning, Harlen was already parked across the street from the store. The lot was mostly empty, save for a few employees unlocking the side entrance. He sat in his truck, watching the front doors remain dark, motionless. A delivery truck idled near the loading dock, driver waiting. Harlen checked the time again, 7:51. Still no sign of Russ. At exactly 8 o'clock, his operations advisor, Melissa, pulled into the lot and parked 2 spaces down. She stepped out in flats and a crisp blazer, holding a leather folder under one arm. She spotted him and walked over without hesitation. "You sure about this?" "I've never been more sure of anything," Harlen answered. They crossed the parking lot together. The regional manager, Davis, was already waiting near the front entrance, trying to look composed but clearly tense. His tie was crooked, and his phone lit up in his palm every few seconds. He greeted them with a forced nod. "Russ isn't here yet," Davis said. Harlen didn't reply. He pushed the door open and held it for the others. Inside, the overhead lights had just flickered on. The floors hadn't been swept. The smell of stale air and cleaning product hung in the front vestibule. A young woman in a navy apron looked up from the customer service desk. Her eyes widened slightly when she saw them, but she said nothing. Harlen walked straight past her. In the break room, 2 employees sat at the back table, eating oatmeal from paper cups. They froze when the group entered. Harlen gave them a brief nod and turned to Davis. "Get them out here, all of them. Managers first." Davis hesitated. "You want me to? I want you to act like someone who's supposed to be in charge." He went pale but turned to do as he was told. Melissa opened her folder and quietly began reviewing a document. Harlen stood near the vending machine and waited. 10 minutes later, Wendy entered first, confusion across her face. She stopped short when she saw Harlen. Behind her came Darlene, her arms folded tight. Russ finally appeared, adjusting his watch as if that might explain his absence. "Morning," Russ said, eyes darting to Davis. "Didn't realize we had a visit scheduled." Harlen didn't answer right away. He watched them all settle into silence. "Let's talk about yesterday," he finally said, voice even. "Let's talk about what happens when a customer, specifically, a mother with a child, has her card declined in your store. Anyone want to explain what the appropriate response is supposed to be?" No one said a word. Darlene shifted slightly, glancing at Wendy. "I'll help," Harlen continued. "Is it mocking her in front of her kid? Is it shaming her loud enough for the people in line to hear?" Darlene's jaw tensed. "That's not what happened. I was standing right behind her," Harlen said. "I watched how you treated her. I watched how you treated the cashier, and I watched how neither of you did anything except act like she was wasting your time." Russ raised a hand slightly, his tone careful. "Look, I'm sure it wasn't handled perfectly, but it wasn't handled, Russ, period. And what's worse, it's not isolated." He looked at Wendy now, understaffing, unsafe food storage, expired product still on shelves, employees skipping breaks. "You want to explain how that's a systems failure?" Wendy's mouth opened, then shut again. Her face flushed. Melissa stepped forward, handing Harlen a printed report. He held it out. "These are customer complaints from this location over the last 60 days. Dozens of them. And every one of them ended up with the same resolution note, handled by store leadership, which, as far as I can tell, means ignored." Russ adjusted his tie. "We closed a lot of those." "We followed protocol. Your protocol is broken," Harlen interrupted, voice rising just enough to stop him cold. "That woman yesterday won't file a complaint. She won't write a review. She'll just never come back, and neither will the people who watched it happen." Darlene crossed her arms tighter. "Are we supposed to stop the line every time someone forgets their wallet?" "No," Harlen said. "You're supposed to treat people like human beings. That's not a gray area." Russ stepped forward. "Look, maybe we need retraining. A refresher on guest interaction. This isn't about training." Harlen turned to Davis. Effective immediately, Darlene is removed from her supervisory position. She's not to interact with customers or staff until a full review is complete. Darlene's mouth twisted. "You're serious?" Harlen didn't look at her. "Wendy, I'll be clear. You're not the problem, but you're not helping either. You've been here long enough to know better. If you want to stay, you're going to have to start acting like the person your team actually needs." Wendy nodded slowly, eyes cast downward. "Russ," Harlen said, turning now with finality. "You're relieved. You can collect your personal items, but you're not managing this store another day." Russ's face drained of color. "You can't be serious. I'm completely serious. You haven't led. You've managed a schedule and disappeared when it got hard, and I don't need that." He turned to Melissa. "Devin from front end, Jonah from stock, and the older woman working water pallets yesterday, find out her name. I want them in this room in the next 15 minutes. Davis moved fast. The others stood frozen as Harlen stepped back, letting the tension hang. He didn't need to explain further. The message was clear. Minutes later, the 3 employees were ushered in. Devin looked bewildered. Jonah wore the same guarded expression he had in the stockroom. The older woman, her name tag now visible as Marcy, stood straight despite the stiffness in her joints. Harlen met each of their eyes. "You don't know me," he said, "but I've seen you work. I've seen how you treat people, customers, coworkers. You do what's right even when no one's watching." Devin shifted his weight. "We just try to keep things moving." "You do more than that," Harlen said. "You hold this place together. And that's going to change." He looked to Melissa. "Devin's being moved to lead cashier, effective now. Jonah stock lead. Marcy, you'll oversee shift coordination for floor staff. That comes with a pay bump, and more say in daily operations." Marcy blinked. "You're serious?" Harlen nodded. "You've earned it." Jonah looked over at Wendy, unsure. "Is this permanent?" "You're on probation, all of you," Harlen said. "But it's a chance to build this store the right way, with people who care about more than just the clock." He turned to Devin. You remember that kid with the crayons? Devin nodded. Yeah, I remember. His mom left here ashamed. You were the only one who looked her in the eye, that matters. Devin didn't say anything. He just nodded again, slower this time. Harlen looked at the three of them. You're not going to fix it alone, but I'll give you everything you need. More staff, better scheduling, real oversight, but I expect the culture to change, starting today. They all nodded. No one smiled. It wasn't the moment for it. He turned back to the managers, still standing on the edge of the room. You don't get to hide behind policies anymore. If something's broken, we fix it. If someone's hurting, we help them. That's the business we're in, not just groceries, people. He waited. No one spoke. Good. He walked out of the break room without another word. The following Monday, Harlen walked into the Florence Avenue store just before noon. No hoodie, no ball cap, no disguise. He wore a plain Oxford shirt and dark jeans, sleeves rolled once at the cuffs. No entourage followed him in. He didn't want a tour. He wanted a normal entrance like any other person walking through the automatic doors. The air inside felt different. Not louder, not busier, just more awake. 2 registers were open, but both lines were moving. The front end ran with a quiet rhythm. Bags were packed neatly, customers asked fewer questions, and the tension he'd felt the week before was gone. He stepped aside to let a woman pass with a full cart. She nodded politely before heading toward the produce section. Several of the displays had been rearranged. The layout felt more open, easier to navigate. A small handwritten sign near the apples read, "Back in stock by request, thank you for your feedback." Harlen walked past the bakery and paused by the dairy wall. The cooler door that had once been taped shut was now fully repaired, humming quietly. A new digital thermometer was installed above it, blinking green. He caught sight of Jonah restocking a shelf near the back, clipboard in hand, guiding a younger worker through the date rotation. "You're up early," Harlen said, approaching. Jonah looked up, then smiled faintly. "Didn't know if you'd actually come back. I said I would." "You did." Jonah nodded toward the cart. "We got 2 more pallets coming in by 3. We're actually ahead of schedule." "You look like you slept," Harlen said. "I did, first time in a while." Harlen didn't say anything for a moment. Then, "You adjusting to the new role, it's different. I'm not used to people actually listening when I flag something. But yeah, it's good, still getting there." Harlen nodded once, then turned toward the front. At Register 2, Devin stood behind the counter, greeting a man with a toddler in his cart. His voice was calm, paced, not rushed. He handed the man a receipt and made a quiet joke that brought a laugh. The little girl clutched a small toy in one hand, waving it at Devin as they left. Harlen waited until the next customer stepped up, then walked over. "You found your rhythm." Devin looked up, surprised. "Didn't expect you today." "I don't like warning shots," Harlen said. "Better to see things how they really are." Devin finished ringing up a woman buying paper towels and dog food. As he handed her the change, he leaned in slightly. People noticed. "The changes, I mean, it's not just us. Customers too." "They don't say it out loud, but you can feel it." Harlen nodded. "That's the idea." One of the newer cashiers came over to ask a question about the register. Devin explained it quickly and stepped aside to let her take over his lane. As they walked toward the end of the aisle, Devin glanced over at the customer service desk. "She came back, you know." "Who?" "The woman from last week, with the kid. Saturday afternoon." Harlen paused. "Did she say anything?" "Not much, just a thank you. Her son wanted to give me a drawing." It was a picture of the crayons. Harlen let out a slow breath. "You keep it?" Devin nodded. "In my locker." They stopped near the entrance beside a small wire rack holding clearance snacks. Harlen leaned against the railing, arms crossed. "You planning to stick around?" he asked. Devin looked around the store. "I was thinking about quitting before, but now I want to see where this goes." Harlen nodded once. "Good." He made his way toward the back office. The hallway had been cleaned. A new bulletin board had been mounted beside the time clock, showing updated shift schedules in large, clear font. A notice read, "Breaks are mandatory, no exceptions. If you miss yours, report it directly." Inside the office, Wendy sat at the desk, reviewing a supplier invoice. She looked up when he entered, stood quickly. "Didn't think you were coming today." "I wanted to follow up." She motioned to the chair across from her. "Sit." He did. "There's been some pushback," she said. "A few people are testing the limits." Some of the old habits die hard. That's expected. But the team's stronger. Marcy's been helping train the new hires. Jonah's reorganized half the backroom. Devon's already flagged 3 checkout issues that would have been ignored a week ago. It's not perfect, but it's moving. Harlen leaned forward. And you, Wendy took a moment. I've been here long enough to know what we lost. Somewhere along the line, I started managing problems instead of people. That's on me. But I'm not staying quiet anymore. Then we're on the same page, she hesitated. What happens next? Harlen stood. We rebuild, not just here, every store. This place is the blueprint now. What works here, we scale. What breaks, we fix before it spreads. He paused at the door. Keep the pressure low, but the standards high. People can do more than we think when they're not afraid. Wendy nodded once, then returned to her work. Harlen stepped out into the hallway and walked through the break room. It had been cleaned. 2 new chairs sat near the wall. The vending machine worked. A small laminated sheet offered suggestions for reporting safety issues directly to corporate anonymous if needed. As he stepped back onto the sales floor, Marcy was helping a customer find a missing item from the weekly ad. She moved with purpose, but without the limp dragging behind her like before. She caught sight of Harlen and gave a quick nod, then went right back to helping. He didn't interrupt. Instead, he walked toward the exit. As the doors slid open, a little girl in a bright yellow jacket ran past him, laughing. Her mother followed close behind, holding a reusable bag and smiling. Harlen stepped into the sunlight. The air smelled of cement and distant traffic. He paused at the edge of the sidewalk and looked back. The sign above the store hadn't changed, same logo, same worn facade, but it didn't matter. What was inside had shifted, and that was enough for now.